So, welcome back to the segment of How Would You Write It, where I pretty much ask a subject of how would you write this certain subject, or go about writing it. And I'm going to talk about, and of course I talk about my version of how I would write this kind of subject as well. So, as you can see from the title, yes, how would you write a meeting between two historical figures? Doesn't have to be, it could be any historical figure from any point, two historical figures meeting from any points in time. Now, the ones I want to, like, the ones that I really thought of that would be cool meeting are, and this one recently came to me, recently, was a meeting and a conversation between Joan of Arc and Vlad the Impaler. It's kind of funny, too, because Vlad was born, historically speaking, Vlad was supposedly born the same year, even the same month, that Joan of Arc was burned at the stake at 19 years old. Yeah, 1431. Yeah, I thought this would be an interesting meeting between the two, and what would they talk about? I mean, obviously both of them fought for God, but the thing is that one was a little extremer than the other now, wasn't he? We have Vlad the Impaler, who literally, name goes without saying, we know what he did, and we have Joan of Arc, who led the French because God told her to. Well, she heard voices from God saying, hey, go fight the English and drive them out of France. That's what she did. So what would be how would it be if Vlad and Joan actually met? Not as a fight, but having a conversation. What would they talk about? Obviously, they would talk about their views on God. I think Vlad would be a little skeptical on some woman. Remember, this is the 1300s. This is the Dark Ages, people. Women aren't thought too highly of. I sincerely doubt that Vlad Prince Vlad would think some teenage girl, heard the voice of God, and I think he would be just incredibly skeptical of her, and I think he would also think of her as a little too naive. And I think Joan would look at Vlad as some kind of big barbarian. He's not doing this for God, he's doing this because he likes it. So, it would be very interesting to see those two have that kind of conversation on God, and see where that would go, because I think their views on how it would go would be surprisingly different, obviously. Among other people, I think I would love to see, two historical figures I would love to have seen sit down and talk are Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein. Those two would have had a lot to talk about. I mean, Nikola Tesla really pushed the boundaries on electricity. Never really got so far, but I think Einstein would be incredibly impressed with what he made, and maybe they would have a lot to go about. I mean, they both had a very hard lifestyle, so I think both of them would have very interesting conversations. Among other things, I would also like to see Isaac Newton in there. Isaac Newton jumping in there and having a conversation with the group. The three of them, you put those three brains together, oh boy, they're going to come up with something awesome. Among other things, I think it would have been really cool. I think about another two historical figures I would put together in a room and just see them talk are, I just lost it. George Washington and George Patton, those two great generals of the American armies. I think it would be interesting to see those two sit down and have a conversation. Both of them were these very gung-ho, believe in a certain freedom, believe in, they believed in the will of the soldier, and they knew how to inspire their soldiers to rally behind them. So I think it would be interesting to see also, how they would react to one another, because obviously I think George Patton would be just completely obviously awestruck. It's like, holy shit, I'm talking to the first president and the general of the militia that drove the English out of the colonies. So those two having a conversation would be completely amazing. I would love to have seen as well. But you guys tell me, what two historical figures would you put in a room and see what would they talk about? What do you think that if you could write a story where two historical figures meet, what do you think? What would they say to each other? What would they talk about? And would they get along? Something like that. Anyway, once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys later.